Okay, folks, we're getting close.
We're live.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the January 13th, 2025 meeting of the University City Council to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Clay,
Present.
Councilmember Teeman,
Present.
Councilmember McMahon,
Here.
Councilmember Fuller,
Here.
Councilmember Smotherson,
Here.
Mayor Crowe.
Here. Thank you very much. Before you, you have the agenda. During the study session, the city manager had asked that we move item K1 to item L1, just from the consent agenda to the city manager's report. Is there such a motion to make that amendment? Motion made by Mr. Smothers and seconded by Mr. Teeman. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. You now have before you the amended agenda. Is there a motion to approve? Motion made by Mr. Smotherson. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Teeman. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We have no proclamations this evening. You have before you the December 9th, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve? Motion made by Mr. Fuller. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. McMahon. Is there a discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We have a number of appointments. The mayor would like to appoint Trish Winchell to the library board. Is there a second? Second made by Mr. McMahon. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. I would like to appoint Jay Trudeau to the Loop Special Business District. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Fuller. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. I would like to appoint Peggy Holland to the EDRST board. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Teeman. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? I would like to appoint Matt Bells to the Plan Commission. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. McMahon. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. I would like to reappoint Renee Bozarth to the Loop Special Business District. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Clay. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Mr. Clay, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Yes, I'd like to nominate Mary Ann Coley for appointment to the pension board.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Fuller. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Clay.
Yes, Mayor Crowe, I'd like to nominate for reappointment Chris Trahan, Peter. I think there's a Scrivener's error. I think it's Wholeness, and for reappointment to the Historic Preservation Committee.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. McMahon. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. You'll notice we had a number of swearings in this past week for a variety of boards and commissions. We'll now come to our next section of the agenda, which is the public comment section. For those of you who've walked in, there are sign-up sheets over by the door. If you'd like to speak either on an agenda item or a non-agenda item, please fill out the form. Please give it to the city clerk. She will then bring it to me. We have public comments on non-agenda items, and then we have comments on agenda items. So hopefully we can work through all of those. We'll go forward on that. Thank you very much. When you come to the microphone, if you'll please hit the bottom, the button at the bottom of the microphone, that will have a green light that comes on. You are allowed to speak for 5 minutes. Please give your name and address. And the first request to speak on a non-agenda item is Brandon Wilkes.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you, Mr. Rose, for inviting me to speak to the council. My name is Brandon Wilkes. I represent the St. Louis Reconciliation Network. Our mission is to heal the broken race relations through St. Louis by harnessing the collective powers of our diverse faith community. We do a lot of teaching and training on this, but in particular, we do unity events throughout the city. And last year, we had the opportunity to do the Race for Reconciliation 5K here on Del Mar, extended in U City all the way down to the St. Louis city. It was a great race. We had over 400 people come and participate, an extra 100 people who came and volunteered, and it turned out great. We were able to collaborate with the Juneteenth celebration by the Loop community center, business centers, with Jessica Bueller helping us and Samantha Smugali. And the reason why we're presenting today is because we'd love to have this event again next. We understand possibly some issues with us communicating with the city well last year, and we wanted to make sure that we did a little bit better this year by moving it a little further into the city so we don't obstruct the roundabout out here, and that we stay basically east of Leland Avenue so that we also don't overlap with the Memorial Day run, because we were about 3 weeks difference from Memorial Day run, and I understood that that was a little bit of a problem. So why I'm presenting today is to want to get your blessing to see if we can have the race again this year with a different route. And we passed out some of the different route. Basically, again, it being 75% in the city side, but all the way down to Leland and then turning around and heading back east again. We feel like it's a great race for U City and the St. Louis City to participate in. We are really intentional on holding it on Delmar because of the historic basically issues with the Delmar divide. We believe that kind of changing that history into something positive where there's a race for racial unity on there instead of it being known as a dividing line for our city and our community. And we think it could be a really positive thing. So I thank you again for the opportunity to speak. I ask that you would give us the opportunity to hold the race down here again, if that be of your preference. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming this evening. Our next request to speak on a non-agenda item is Ms. Pat McQueen.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Honorable City Council men, and Mr. Rose. Senior moment analyst. Well, okay. My name is Patricia McQueen. I live at 1132 George Street in University City. I'm here on a non-agenda item about the condition of the roads during the last snow/sleet storm. I was not able to get off my street until Thursday around 10:30 when they finally came through and tried to, salt and shovel the snow. I'm concerned because I know there were some other streets that were cleared. My street, George, was not. I'm wondering what kind of materials we actually purchased, because I think maybe we had not materials that could melt the ice. I know for me, for my driveway, I can have two kinds of ice. Two kinds of salt. If the salt is, there's the salt that is just the regular salt and it does not melt the ice. But then there's the salt that I buy that says it can melt below 0 or even -10. I'm thinking that our supplies did not buy the second kind of salt. I could probably go back in minutes and try to find out where the bid came from and all that, but I don't have time for that. I'm thinking that we need to prepare better for the next onslaught of an ice storm. And I know I got probably tons of people in line behind me agreeing with me. That's what I wanted to make you aware of. Thank you. Oh, one last thing. There was a person that was in a University City truck that was behind a car that was stuck at the entrance of my street. They just sat there while somebody else came along and was helping the young man. Then they drove off. That is not the neighborly image that we want to present. So I think there should be maybe some more discussion about our employees who weren't neighborly during this sleet storm. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our first section on citizen comments. Are there any council comments at this time? There's usually not, but I'm game if there are. Well, if not, we're going to keep going. There are no public hearings. You have before you on the consent agenda as amended, items 2, 3, and 4. Is there a motion to approve items 2, 3, and 4 from the consent agenda? Motion made by Mr. Fuller, seconded by Mr. McMahon. Is there a discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Rose.
Honorable Mayor and council members, this first item asks that you consider the For the Third Ward plan. If you recall, you appointed a housing and third ward revitalization task force to prepare a plan for revitalizing the third ward area. The task force has completed their work and has presented the plan, and I'm recommending acceptance of the For the Third Ward plan that has been created by the Third Ward Housing and Revitalization Task Force. Further, that direction is given as programs are created to place those proposed programs on a regular council agenda for consideration. Be happy to respond to any questions that you have.
Mr. Smotherson.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. Ms. Rose, what I'd like to do is, and I do appreciate the wording that you're using, and that is that you're stating you want the council to accept this plan. But I'd like to ask you, and if I may, get a legal opinion about the difference between exception and approval, meaning we're not approving this plan. We're just, so I would really like to get an understanding of the difference between acceptance and approval, if I could.
Do you want to take a shot at it? Is there a legal difference? Well, I can, Honorable Mayor, Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Smotherson. The distinction that is being made between acceptance and approval is up under certain circumstances, programs that would be created up under a document that's been approved by the mayor and council may not return to the council for input direction. It would simply be based upon the approved document. Acceptance works a little different, is my experience, where all programs that are created based upon the document, the plan that's created, will come back to the mayor and council for consideration. When you look at the hierarchy of approvals, normally it works as a ordinance is the highest level. Then you have approval of a document, and then you have acceptance of a document. So in this case, you ask for your task force to prepare a document, a plan for you. They believe they have completed that work, and now I'm recommending acceptance of it.
Okay, with the understanding that, and again, that's fine. So just to make sure I understand this, so when these programs are created and they are brought back, then that's when the council will have the ability to approve those programs. Is that correct?
Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Smotherson, that's correct. Similar to what we are doing with the summer camp program. You may recall you provided direction to me as city manager to work with staff to create a program. We believe that we've done that. We had an initial work session with you. You asked for some adjustments. We're coming back next meeting and hopefully we'll get your final direction. These programs that would be developed from this plan would work in a similar fashion where they would be created, proposed, and then they would be brought forward during a study session with the council for consideration, for direction and input.
And approval.
Well, normally approval, I hesitated to say that because approval occurs in the regular session. So process would be, we would have a work session with you first. And then the same as we will do with the rec summer camp program, place that on your regular agenda for approval. It would be the same process that would be used for anything created up under the third ward plan.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I believe Mr.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yeah.
are you wanting to add?
Just basically legally, this is a guide. This document's a guide for planning purposes. Think of the comprehensive plan, which is a guide, and there'll have to be certain budget appropriations made, zoning ordinances passed, and the like. And basically, you're going to have this situation here with this guide. In order to administer it, there may and will be additional council actions which will have to be taken.
Mr. Clay?
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. Again, I want to extend my gratitude to the Third Ward Task Force. They worked for, I think there was some reference of 2022 being the start of this. That is a long process, and we appreciate their effort and their dedication, seeing it to the finish line of having this plan. I think Attorney Mulligan's use of the word guide is appropriate. I see it as a blueprint, much like when an architect designs something, once they get into the home and actually begin building and tearing down walls, you may have to make adjustments. Often you do have to make adjustments based on the circumstances, based on a variety of things. But I think the overarching principles of setting up programs that will benefit existing residents, I think is something we can all get on board with conceptually. I think attention to the Northeast quadrant, whether it manifests exactly as the ETSO plan or not, the idea that we are paying attention to the Northeast section of the Third Ward and of University City, I think is critical. So again, I thank those who were involved in this, and looking forward to seeing the program development take place as we move forward with something that was promised to this community. Goodness gracious, I will been on council almost 8 years. So even before that, this was one of the commitments that this council made and previous councils made to the Third Ward and the citizens of University City, that we would take the proceeds of the Markets at Olive development for benefit of the Third Ward. So again, thank you all.
If there are no other questions prior to this, I just simply want to second Mr. Clay. Thanks to the task force members. You guys really did incredible work, very dedicated to our city and community. Thank you for doing that.
There would be a motion to
There a
accept.
motion to accept? Oh, Ross, I apologize. Come on up. Come on up. Come on up. I'm sorry. Thank you for waving your hand.
Okay. I have to get my my little talk back on my phone. My printer refused to work today. Okay. My name is Rosalind Williams, and I've lived for 44 years at 7408 Chamberlain Avenue. I want to give you a little background on why I'm speaking to about the Third Ward plan. And a little backstory, okay? Throughout my 50-year career in city planning, I have had the privilege of working in several municipalities, including Kirkwood and Ferguson and Ithaca, New York, and Berkeley. And over those years, I've managed 3 tax increment finance projects. I annexed the Meacham Park area and worked with residents in the city on a request for proposals for that area. One of the outcomes of this work was the Kirkwood Commons. And it is adjacent and the adjacent redevelopment of the Meacham Park, which was recently annexed in at that time. I also played a key role in preparing and implementing the strategic plan for the Meacham Park redevelopment. More recently, I served as the interim community development director for the University City during the consideration of the TIF plan. I was retired when Mr. Rose approached me about the temporary position, but I said I saw it as an opportunity to help the city replicate the successful Meacham Park TIF model. This model directed millions of TIF dollars generated from the commercial Kirkwood Commons development towards the adjacent residential revitalization. I co-founded a not-for-profit with Barbara Heiss to develop and promote a inclusionary neighborhoods and the disruption of concentrated poverty. So before Mr. Rose came on as the city manager, we worked for several years to reverse the decades of disinvestment in the Third Ward neighborhoods caused by discriminatory redlining practices. As an example, we worked to block additional tax credit financing projects in the Northeast neighborhood to stop the concentration of poverty. The neighborhood was already 30% low income. When the city began preparing the RFP for what eventually became the Novus Commercial Redevelopment TIF, collaborated with councilpersons Carr and Smotherson to ensure the RFP included broader purposes and goals beyond the commercial redevelopment. We also advocated for the TIF boundaries to include a larger area, specifically incorporating the Northeast neighborhood, one of the city's most economically distressed areas. Including this neighborhood within the TIF area allowed the funding from the commercial development to serve as seed money for the revitalization of a sluggish housing market. Since the Northeast neighborhood wasn't adjacent to the original redevelopment area, commercial redevelopment area, we had to include the neighborhoods in between in order to comply with the Missouri TIF law. Now, this is why we had this huge area that we had to send out notices to every last 6,000 residents. Okay. These efforts to broaden the scope of the redevelopment became a cornerstone for the TIF's success, helping it gain public acceptance. I am proud of the work we accomplished and the potential impact it would have on promoting equitable neighborhood revitalization and sustaining urban development. However, I am here to critique the final plan for the Third Ward redevelopment that is under the city manager's report. As I reviewed the draft report, I noted several critical issues and gaps that undermine its potential effectiveness in addressing the redevelopment needs of the Third Ward. Here are some of my observations. The report fails to identify specific challenges and issues facing the Third Ward. Without a clear understanding of the problems, there is no evaluation of what needs to be addressed. Am I 5 minutes in? Can I skip to my?
Your 5 minutes are up, but I'll let you conclude.
Let me just conclude, then I'll just skip. I think Pat is going to cover some of those issues. Okay. In summary, the implementation of this plan completely misses the mark of fulfilling the TIF's promise to close the housing value gap between the city wards, particularly for the Third Ward residents, thereby enhancing their quality of life. And I'd like to say that the planning clearly shows the administration's focus on routine infrastructure improvements using the city's tax revenue to replace the $10 million allocated for the TIF for the third ward. And this shift undermines the original housing-focused funding intent. Apart from the $3 million the developer advanced, it remains unclear where the other $7 million in the TIF budget is allocated. And this is a very important issue that has to be cleared up before any early closure of the TIF is undertaken. I understand we're doing very well. We'll have the $10 million, but where is it? So I think I qualify to be able to critique this, and I do have an interest. I am a resident. I have been a resident for 44 years. I've been busy with other communities, but I think that the residents north of Olive deserve a deliberate transformation plan and a fair one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. McQueen?
This is a visual. Yes, again, my name is Patricia McQueen. I live at 1132 George Street in University City. And dear Honorable Mayor Crow, University City Councilman Smotherston, Clay, Hales, McMahon, Tillman, and Fuller, and City Manager Rose. I got it right this time. My name is Patricia McQueen, and I have served on the Housing and Third Ward Revitalization Task Force. I'm not speaking as a member of the task force for this, but as a private citizen. Again, I have reviewed the proposed final third ward plan written by the hired consultants, Yard and Company, and the task force minutes from the year 2022. I noticed that the third ward plan under stakeholders meetings and interviews that the third ward councilmen were not listed. Under the stakeholder meeting, public sector, I see the mayor, city manager, and various senior administrative staff, but no mention of the third ward city councilman. Under interviews, I see mentioned the city, University City School Superintendent, police and fire chiefs, directors of public works, and the planning director. And again, no mention of the third ward city councilman. In previous years' neighborhood plans, I've noticed that the third ward council persons were involved. I find this most troubling. In October 17, 2022, task force minutes, City Councilman Boyne Smotherston reported that he had asked the mayor if he was interested, that is, Dr. Smotherston was interested in serving as the council liaison to the task force. In December 5th, 2022, task force minutes, a motion was made and passed stating that a council liaison should be appointed to the task force. The roll call vote was 8 yes and 1 absent. Considering the city council has time to review the third ward plan presented by the consultants, I believe now is the time for a more in-depth conversation about the plan, which was not possible due to the time allotted during the study session. I hope that the plan is not rubber stamped without deeper discussion and review. Have the councilman asked, for example, what is the vision or set of goals to guide the third ward redevelopment efforts? What are the strategies that would form the framework for progress? What are the sequencing and prioritization of activities for effective redevelopment, such as what should be addressed first and why? What should be done regarding the prevalence of investor-owned properties and the substandard conditions of those properties? Why is a community development corporation with expertise in redevelopment to work with proposed new staff positions not in place to lead the implementations of strategies, coordinate stakeholders, and ensure long-term accountability. Respectfully, Patricia McQueen. I will say at my closing, yes, there are some typos and things not connecting on the type because I was typing it on the fly on my very high-pressured job. But I wanted you to hear the gist of what my concerns were. So with that, I conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments this evening. Madam Clerk, do I have a motion? Do we have a motion on the floor or not?
Not yet.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the report? Motion made by Mr. Clay, seconded by Mr. Smotherson. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We'll now move forward to unfinished business. We have before us bill number 9563. I apologize. It's not on my agenda. This is on.
Yeah.
Oh, updates. I'm slipping tonight. Under city manager updates, I believe I was going to do that later on, but perfect now. Absolutely.
Honorable Mayor, council members, a couple of you had asked for an update regarding the leaf collection program as well as the snow removal program that we are unfortunately still implementing. I've asked Director Darren Girdler to provide you with a very brief update on both of those programs. Mr. Girdler? Oh, before we get to that, I do want to recognize Brooke Sharp, who worked extensively with the Housing and Third Ward Revitalization Task Force. She put in many, many hours, and I want to make sure that she understands that her work is very appreciated. Mr. Girdler.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Mayor, City Council, Madam Clerk. Regarding leaf collection, we collected 14,082 cubic yards of leaves this year, down from about 18,000 last year. So a little bit less. It was a 2-3 week program in this season, plus a few extra days where people were either slow at getting their leaves out or the contractor missed them and we called them back to get it picked up. So the leaf program, it's a 3-year contract. Next year, we're going to do a little bit, we're going to make sure we stick with our districts and our timing so that we don't have any confusions as we may have had this year on a couple of dates. So we're going to stick with our districts, East, Central, West, and then week to week to week. If they're done on Thursday, they don't have to work Friday. If they're not done, they can work Saturday, but otherwise they move to the next district the next week. Snow removal. The city of University City has 162 lane miles of road. So if you have a mile going this way and the second mile is coming back, so lane miles, not center line. We used a total of 306 tons of salt or 612,000 pounds. We just ordered 280 tons of salt from a cooperative with the city of Chesterfield and most other municipalities in St. Louis County. We ordered 280 tons. We did use all of the salt in this event from the barns empty. We did get 120 delivered today on not an emergency basis, but we had a supplier that could get us about for the same cost as Chesterfield's, maybe a couple more dollars a ton. Which is our average cost is about $82 to $83 a ton for salt. We do treat the salt with calcium chloride liquid. We wet the salt so that it will react better. But with packed snow that may be this thick on the street, the salt is difficult for it to penetrate to get to the pavement and warm up that pavement. We are as Mr. Rose pointed out in his weekly report, moving back to a system closer to policy where we have 10 zones. For example, zone 5 is the high school zone. So we'll make that a little bit higher concentration. I do have, if anyone's interested, and I think we'll put it online if that's okay with Mr. Rose, the zone map and the legend has first priority, second priority, the county streets and the state streets and the private streets identified. So we'll throw that online on the Parks and Rec street or the street division page, if that's okay. We spent a total of 700 hours, man hours on the event this year, this most recent event. As of January, that was as of 5 o'clock this afternoon. We should be finished clearing up and pushing back corners and plowing back to the curb this week. Our large truck did go down for a while, which was a real help. We do have a new truck sitting at Crayons, getting outfitted with a blade and a salt box and brine tanks so that we can treat with liquid also the streets, pre-treat. That truck should be delivered Friday. And then we have a truck we call number 85 that is all set up for also a 2-ton Freightliner that's also set up for a snow plow and salt box and brine tanks. So we're working on getting that outfitted as well. And then we have another truck. You approved 2 trucks earlier this year. Next year, if we order trucks, I think we need to think about March instead of July. So we get them in, we get them. We'll but other than that, we did cover 6,247 miles of street plowing. Salt lane miles, which is we have to report to MSD. We use 90.78 pounds per lane mile average on the on application of salt. MSD will allow up to 400 pounds per lane mile, so we're well under their threshold for that. But as I said, we use the entire barn full of salt this event. So we've been working 7 to 7, 12 since the storm started. And unless there's any questions, that's all I have, sir.
Are there questions from any members of council or comments to be made? Mr. Smotherson.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. Thank you, Mr. Gergler, for the report. What I wanted to ask is that how is the policy, the snow removal policy, how is that directed to the people that are actually on the street? And what I mean by that is this. Because as long as I've lived here, I've known and understood that policy as being that you would plow a street from curb to curb if able to, meaning if there are no cars on the street. And one of the things that it even states in your policy is that to help that process is to tell the residents to move their cars off the street, park them in the driveway so that the streets are clear. But your policy states that you would plow from curb to curb, but that didn't occur this time. And I'm trying to understand, how was your policy directed to the staff and making sure that they understand what that responsibility is?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Smotherson. We do have a little work to do with staff training, and the goal this round was to get the street open and to get at least 1 pass or 2 passes down each street and come back and get to the curbs and push the corners back. I agree with you that if you're on a street, you might as well finish it if you can. So we're going to have some staff training into this week, early next week, before our next major event.
Well, and the last thing that I'll say is that because I actually purposely, and I have to say this, I think it was Sunday night or Monday night or whatever, and when it snowed, that I dug my wife's car out off the street. My son and I dug it out and put it in the driveway, and I dug my niece's car off the street and put it in the driveway for that exact purpose. But what in fact happened, and I've even seen this in some of the emails that were actually sent by other council members, that street was completely clear of cars from my house all the way down to the end to Olive. But what they did was 1 pass in the middle of the street, and it was just a little pass. It didn't create much of a ripple. And so again, I'm just concerned about the effectiveness of it. And I admire the people that get out there and work, but you know, if we have a policy, we should be actually, standing by that policy. If it's possible to clear that street, you don't have any car obstacles, then I think that should be done, if that's possible.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Fuller.
I do want to compliment, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Rose. I want to compliment all the complaints that got forwarded through me did get addressed immediately. And this is a tongue-in-cheek statement, so don't send me cards and letters. I am amazed at the number of people in our ward that have suddenly are experts on street cleaning. I'll let that go for what it says, but I know your folks have been out there 24/7. And whenever we had a complaint, they were quick to get out there and address it. And I know there are some circumstances, the type of snow and sleet that were difficult to get off and yada, yada. But I appreciate everybody responding when I had complaints that were forwarded. And I want to thank you all for that.
Thank you.
Clay.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe, and thank you, Director Girdler. I too want to acknowledge those that were out doing the plowing and to Councilmember Fuller's point, when an area of concern was brought to the attention of the city, I think there was every effort made to address it. Councilman Smotherson, I think astutely pointed out some challenges with the street cleaning, so I won't go into that. But I will say I think there is a role for communication in this process. I think folks do understand, those of us who have seasoned and are veteran of many storms, get when there's ice, that's going to complicate things in a manifest way. But I think communication of, to your point, putting the map out, here's what we're doing. If there's any coordination with the school district, and you know what, we're going to prioritize bus routes. I think people will understand that if they know what's happening, and utilizing our social media avenues, the website as vehicles to communicate what we're doing. I think folks are reasonable enough to realize their street may not get gotten to immediately. I think folks know that. Some maybe are unreasonable, but I think most get that. But if there's some sort of communication feed that people can tap into, or we as council people can direct people to, I think that might ameliorate some of the concerns. Not all of them. Folks still got to clean the streets off, but I think that can ameliorate some of the concerns.
Mr. McMahon.
I'll try to be brief. I thank you for your report, both on the leaf pickup and the snow event. The leaf pickup, I think your and our contractors' efforts to be gracious made it, and at the end of the day, a little more difficult for everybody. And I'm glad to hear that you've thought through that process and a decision's been made to say, you know what, we try to extend after a date and do extra work to work ahead to make this better. And I think that created confusion. Then leaves came out late. No one knew when they'd come back. And it in the effort to do a better job, it seemed like it created some confusion. So by going back to the districts and saying, this is your week, get them out at this time. If you don't get them out, that's on you. I think it's going to work better. And I think we'll, then everybody knows what the plan is, and we'll stick to it. I appreciate the efforts on the snow removal. With the map, if that's the one that was emailed to us, I think it's that we want to go back through and check on some of the streets. There may be streets that at the time that was made were not bus routes that are bus routes. And so you may post that and you may get calls of, why wasn't my street cleaned? It's a bus route. So it depends on the age of the map. And that goes back to what Mr. Clay said about coordinating with the school district. Just as a heads up, you may get that call later if someone digs in and takes a real close look. So, but I appreciate the efforts. It was not an easy job. You were on the mostly the high impact streets where people are getting to, and that trickles down to the streets that just don't get as much traffic. But that's someone's street and they drive it every day. So it's high impact for them. And that's kind of where those two things collide. But I appreciate all the efforts.
Yeah, I would actually, as I listen to my colleagues' comments, it seems to me like, first off, Mr. Girdley, we appreciate your candor in talking about the training and the need for further training, because I think we all respect that. And I think our citizens would like hearing that as well. I think it's also important, as my colleagues have asked, about both communication with our citizens and then coordination with our partners. So for us, anytime you get sleet, snow, ice, all within 24, 36 hours, you've got your hands full. I know it was rough for everybody, including those of you who are watching. It was hard on everybody. I completely get it. So hopefully we will always seek to improve, provide better service to everyone, but thank you for sharing your comments with us this evening.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So now I believe I'm ready for unfinished business of bill number 9563. Madam Clerk, may we have the second reading?
Bill 9563, an ordinance fixing the compensation to be paid to city officials and employees as enumerated herein from and after January 13th, 2025, and repealing ordinance number 7360.
May we have the third reading?
Bill 9563, an ordinance fixing the compensation to be paid to city officials and employees as enumerated herein from and after January 13th,
there-
2025, and repealing ordinance number 7360.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion made by Mr. Fuller. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Teeman. Is there discussion? Hearing that, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember McMahon,
Aye.
Councilmember Fuller,
Aye.
Councilmember Smotherson,
Aye.
Councilmember Clay,
Aye.
Councilmember Teeman,
Aye.
Mayor Crowe.
Aye. The bill is passed. We have no resolutions. Are there any reports from members of council or from any of the commissions? I don't see anyone. I don't believe we have any further citizen participation requests, Madam Clerk. Council comments. Any council comments this evening from anyone? Mr. Smotherson.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. I just wanted to end this night with something that I am really, I'm hopeful in the new year, because this is a new year and this is our first meeting in the new year. And, one of the things that I take Missouri Municipal League courses, and just letting my colleagues know that you all pay for this and the taxpayers pay for this. And so I'm learning some interesting things. And one of the things that I wanted to say to my colleagues is that in this new year that we're approaching, I'm hoping that we can start becoming the elected officials that we were put in this office for. And that, what I mean by that is this, that I'm really, we're starting this pattern where we're not doing our job. And I wish, and I don't mean to say it that we are, but to a certain degree, we're not. What I mean by that is this, is that one of the things they say is stay in your lane. And that's one of the things they teach in the courses, that we stay in our lanes. We're council members. We're not staffers. We're not directors. We are council members. So as council members, our job is to make policy. And what concerns me is that's what we're not doing, because what's happening is that we're having policy handed to us and we're rubber stamping that, opposed to making policy. And I can give you perfect examples. And, tonight was a real blatant example of that. And that is the Third Ward Housing Plan. This council had no input into that plan. We had nothing at all. That plan was then put on the consensus agenda to be approved. But luckily that was moved and now we've accepted that. But again, this council had no input to that plan. Policy is what we're supposed to be making. And we are charged with, again, as they stated, staying in our lanes and make policy. So I'm really hopeful that in 2025, that this council again recognizes that there's a pattern, and that pattern is that we put together a task force, then we hire a consultant, then then they send that to the council as a summary, and we approve it. We repeat that process over and over again. We're repeating that process right now with this waste task force. So again, what I'm hoping is that we take the time to actually do the job that we were elected for, and that is to make policy. And I will just simply say that I will stay in my lane. I got in a little trouble last year. I will try to stay in my lane, and Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you.
Any other council comments this evening? I have just a few. First, I would like to make a few comments of my own, and that every member of council made an appointment to the Third Ward Task Force. Every member of council made their own appointment, and then we voted on them. Every member of council had a right to go to any task force meeting anytime and speak, talk, ask questions, answer questions, and interact. Never prevented. The report comes out. It was all made up of people appointed by the people on this body. Now, I remember when I was at Edward Jones, one of the phrases was, there are many different ways to get to the same place. So we may have gotten there in different ways, but I do not believe any person sitting on this dais abdicated their roles or their responsibilities in the Third Ward Task Force. And as far as the Rate Commission goes, once again, every member of this council had the chance to make an appointment, and I believe almost everybody did. Every member can participate. University City is a community that engages the people in its community. We ask for their input. That's why we have so many commissions. So, same way on the task force for the rate increase. Anyone is welcome to participate at any time, and then it will come back to us. And by the way, I have the utmost respect for my colleague. We may disagree on how our roles are, but I have the utmost respect for Mr. Smothers because we have been through so much together over so many years. I also would like to take just a moment and say to my colleagues, we did not really get a chance to say goodbye or to thank Councilmember Hales as he moved to Jefferson City for his new responsibilities. He is now probably walking down the steps at the governor's ball. So we wish him the best of luck, and hopefully at some point in time, we can ask him to come back with a legislative update for us, which is always enjoyable to hear. And we're glad to have him there joining Senator Brian Williams as they represent us. As I drove up this evening, I want to just very briefly say to you, I hope that everyone takes a moment as you see all of the flags flying at half-staff. Because since our last meeting, we lost the 39th President of the United States, who lived to the ripe age of 100. One of the few men in history who we can say not only served as president, but probably did more for the world after he was president. Truly a great man we have lost, and a great humanitarian, someone who worked tirelessly for the poor, the homeless, and truly lived his beliefs. So I know that I know all of you join me in the grief that is now being expressed by our country, but as you drive around and see the flags at half-staff, very meaningful. If there's nothing else, may I have a motion to adjourn? Motion made by Mr. McMahon, seconded by Mr. Clay. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. We are adjourned.